When Sundaramurthy Swamigal wrote Thiruttondattogai, communication facilities were limited. It took a long time for news to reach from one place to another. So, although he had heard of the 60 Nayanmars that he covered in his Togai, he could hardly give any detail about them other than his single-line references. Nambiandar Nambi, who came later, could give some details. Finally, when Seklar started his work, he could travel and also use his position as the minister. Hence, he was able to gather more information than the other two. Even then, the information so collected was not much in the case of quite a few Nayanmars, and Seklar on his part did not want to add anything of his own or anything that was not verified by him. As a consequence, the hagiologies of some Nayanmars were covered in very few verses. Here is a group of 4 such Nayanmars, all of them very docile by nature. From these episodes, one can realize that for an Adiyar to become a Nayanmar, it is certainly not necessary that he should have done extraordinary things, and that ordinary human beings who acted with human kindness and kept chanting the Shivanama could also become Nayanmars. SIRAPPULIYAR Puranam. Seklar has covered this Nayanmar in just 6 verses. Sirappuliyar was a devout Brahmin living in Akkur, a holy village in Cholanadu and known for its presiding deity that was not separately installed, Pradishthai, but showed up on its own, Thandondri Appar or Swayambhu. Sambandar has sung about the characteristic of this village. He said, "People of this village will always give something without saying no to those who go begging to them. இன்மையால் இறந்து சென்றோர்க்கு இல்லை என்னாதே ஈயும் தன்மையார்." Sirappuliyar was no exception. Feeding the Adiyars without fail was his chosen mode of service. Seelaraai சாலும் ஈகை திறத்தினில் சிறந்த வீரர். He had developed this service of attending on and feeding the Adiyars into a perfect art. When Adiyars came, he would receive them by prostrating at their feet and diligently did 3 things every time, looking at them with a lot of compassion. ஆதரவு பொங்க முன்னின்று, saying sweet words to them, இனியன கூறி, and feeding them with good food, நாளும் நல்லமுது ஊட்டி. This done, he would send them back with a lot of gifts too. Sirappuliyar continued this sacred service of feeding Adiyars, chanting the Panchaksharam and tending the holy fire in his house till he reached the lotus feet of the Lord. Idangali Nayanar Puranam. Idangaliyar, a descendant from the clan of Aditya Cholan, lived in Kodumbalur, the capital of Konadu, said to have existed then in the present Pudukkottai district. Idangaliyar was a chieftain of that small state. He was yet another Adiyar who was devoted to Shiva and his servitors and engaged in the sacred service of feeding the Adiyars. One day, he found to his dismay that there was no paddy to feed an Adiyar who came to his house. Left with no alternative, he rushed in the midnight to the agriculture treasure house of the king. While he was removing paddy from one of the ricks, he was caught red-handed by the night guards. Understandably, he was produced before the king. Idangaliyar narrated how his mission of feeding the Adiyar was hindered and he was driven to do this undesirable act. அத்தன் அடியாரை யான் அமுது செய்விப்பது முட்ட இத்தகைமை செய்தேன். To the surprise of everyone, the king's reaction was quite different. The king freed him and said, "He is my treasure house. இவரன்றோ பண்டாரம் எனக்கு." He didn't stop at that. He got it declared that both his granaries and coffers be thrown open to people for the purpose of feeding the devotees of God. PUGAZHTHUNAIYAR Puranam. This is the episode of another docile but determined Adiyar in the service of Shiva, PUGAZHTHUNAIYAR. He was a pious Brahmin belonging to a place called Seruvilliputtur. He took to doing daily puja to Shiva in the temple as prescribed in Vedas and Agamas. Tavattale Tattvathin Valipaduvar. Poverty struck the village. Poor Brahmin was hungry, yet he wouldn't give up his puja to the Lord. While he was trying to bathe the Lord with a water pot on his shoulder, he was so emaciated and exhausted that he couldn't bear the weight of the pot with water. He fell on the head of the Lord and slept off. Kola nirai punaldangu kudam thanga mattamai ஆலமணி கண்டத்தார் முடிமீது வீழ்ந்து அயர்வார். The Lord told him in his dream that he would leave a gold coin every day till the village gets out of this shortage of food. அருந்து உணவு மங்கிய நாள் கழிவளவும் வைப்பது நித்தமும் ஒரு காசு எங்கு உனக்கு. PUGAZHTHUNAIYAR then continued his devoted service to the Lord till he reached his lotus feet. NESAR Puranam. Secular has sung the hagiology of NESAR in just 5 verses. NESAR hailed from a family of weavers who were said to have come from Kambili, a place in Bellary district. It is also said that he belonged to a weaver's place called Kurenadu near Mailadurai, where deities brought from Kambili have been installed and even now being worshipped by the weavers, Saliyar Kulattar. NESAR devoted his thought to the flowery feet of Shiva. Manathin Seigai Aranadi Podukku Aki. His word to the sacred 5 letters. Vakin Seigai Uyarnda Anjalithukku Aki. And his deed to the service of Shiva's servitors. Kaitholilin Seigai Tambiran Adiyarkku Aki. His was a simple but strange service. He wove dhoti and kovanam, the strip of cloth that went beneath the loins, a forelap generally worn by all adiyars. He gladly distributed these dhotis and the forelaps to the adiyars free of cost. உடையோடு நல்ல கீழும் ஒப்பில் கோவணம் நெய்து விடையவர் அடியார் வந்து வேண்டுமாறு ஈயும். Along with this sacred service, NESAR continued to worship the Lord and reached his lotus feet.